The valley smelled like dust and iron and something older than fear. It was a narrow place called Elah, a dry riverbed cutting between two ridges of pale limestone hills in the lowlands of Judah, where scrubby oak trees clung to the slopes, and the afternoon wind carried grit that settled on your teeth. Two armies had come to this valley and stopped. On one ridge, the Philistines, the sea people, iron-forged and battle-seasoned, the most feared military force in the known world. On the other, the army of Israel, farmers and shepherds in bronze, men who knew how to swing a sickle better than a sword. Between them, nothing but open ground and a silence that had been stretching for 40 days. Israel's king was a tall man named Saul, head and shoulders above everyone else, chosen partly because he looked like a king should look. But looks and courage are different things, and Saul had learned that the hard way. His army had learned it too, because every single morning and every single evening, a voice would rise from the Philistine camp, a voice like a millstone dragged across stone, and that voice would thunder across the valley and ask the same terrible question: "Is there a man among you?" The voice belonged to Goliath of Gath, and nobody answered. Far from that valley, in the green hill country of Bethlehem, a boy named David was doing what he always did. He was watching sheep. He was the youngest of 8 brothers, young enough that his father Jesse still sent him out with the flock rather than to war. He slept under open sky. He knew the stars by season. He knew how to find water in dry country and how to stay very, very still when something dangerous was nearby. He had killed a lion once, with his hands, to protect his father's sheep. He had killed a bear, not because he was fearless, but because the sheep were his to protect, and that felt more important than fear. He didn't know it yet, but a valley 40 miles away was about to change everything. His father sent him with bread and grain for his brothers, and a simple errand: come back with news. David arrived at the Israelite camp as the army was moving out toward the battle line, shouting the war cry, getting into formation. He could feel the energy of it, the drumbeat of sandaled feet, the clatter of shields, men psyching themselves up for something they hoped would not actually happen. And then the voice came. It rolled across the valley like a wave of sound, deep, unhurried, almost amused. David heard it before he saw its source. Then he looked across the open ground and understood why Israel's army had been frozen for 40 days. Goliath of Gath stood nearly 10 feet tall. That isn't a figure of speech. Scripture gives us exact numbers: 6 cubits and a span. His bronze armor alone weighed 5,000 shekels, 125 pounds of overlapping bronze scales shimmering in the Judean sun. His iron spear tip weighed 600 shekels. A man walked before him carrying only his shield, because Goliath's hands were occupied with weapons, and his shield alone required a full-time bearer. He was, in every practical sense, a walking fortress. He said what he always said: "Send me a man, and we will fight. If he kills me, we will be your servants. If I kill him, you serve us." Then he added, with the particular contempt of a man who has never been surprised, "I defy the armies of Israel this day." The Israelite soldiers who had been shouting moments before went very quiet. David watched this. He heard the whispers running through the ranks, the numbers men put on what Goliath's armor was worth, the side conversations about what the king had promised to give the man who could fight him. He also heard something else, that Goliath had spoken against the living God, and that part caught in David's chest like a thorn. His oldest brother Eliab found him asking questions and got angry, the way older brothers get angry when they suspect a younger one is about to do something that will embarrass them all. Why did you come down here? Who's watching those few sheep? I know your pride and your evil heart. You came to see the battle. David looked at him. What have I done? Is there not a cause? There was. And somehow word reached the king. Saul met the boy and saw immediately what the problem was. You are not able to fight this man. You're just a youth, and he has been a warrior from his youth. Everything Saul said was factually correct. He was not wrong about any of it. The gap between David and Goliath was not inspirational, it was absurd. But David told him about the lion. He told him about the bear. He said, "The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." He didn't say it boastfully. He said it the way you state something you have seen with your own eyes. Saul let him go. He even tried to dress David in his own armor: bronze helmet, coat of mail, sword at his hip. David walked around in it for a moment, then took it all off. He hadn't tested it. He didn't know how to move in it. He needed to be exactly who he was. So he went to the brook. The water was low, just a trickle in the rocky bed, but it was enough. David waded in and felt the smooth stones with his fingers, turning them over, weighing them in his palm. He chose 5. Round, dense, worn smooth by years of water. He tucked them into the shepherd's bag at his side. He took his staff in one hand and his sling in the other, and he walked out toward a giant. Goliath saw him coming from a distance. He waited. When David was close enough for Goliath to make out what he was, a boy, a shepherd's staff, no armor, no sword, the giant did something unexpected. He was offended. "Am I a dog," he said, "that you come to me with sticks?" He cursed David by his gods. He promised, with elaborate specificity, what he was going to do to David's body when this was over. David didn't slow down. He said, "You come to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a javelin. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." He said it clearly. Not performing bravery, not suppressing terror, speaking from a place that was deeper than either. "This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel." He reached into his bag. He ran toward Goliath. Ran, not walked. And as he ran, he loaded his sling and loosed it. The stone crossed the valley air in less than a heartbeat. It struck Goliath in the forehead, the one place his armor could not cover, and sank in. The giant fell forward, face to the earth. The ground shook when he landed, and for a moment the entire valley was absolutely still. David stood over him. He had no sword of his own, so he took Goliath's and used it. And when the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they ran. What do we do with a story like this? We could reach for the obvious, the underdog, the courage, the triumph. And all of those things are real. But there's something quieter at the center of this story, something worth sitting with. David wasn't fearless. He was afraid and went anyway. He wasn't powerful. He was small and went anyway. He didn't win because he was exceptional. He won because he knew, in his bones, that he was not alone. That the same God who had been faithful in the dark hills with the sheep would be faithful here, in the open valley, in front of everyone. And that changes the question the story asks. It doesn't ask, "Are you brave enough?" It asks, "Do you know who walks with you?" Because armies can freeze. Giants can dominate. 40 days of silence can make the impossible feel permanent. But there is something that does not calculate the way fear calculates, something that runs toward what everyone else runs from, because it has already settled the question of who holds the outcome. A shepherd boy picked up 5 smooth stones, and the world tilted on its axis. And something that had looked like forever ended before sundown.